What's up YouTube? During my last track day, I blew my charge pipe. Instead of replacing it with another plastic charge pipe that could break again, I decided to go with one of the aluminum options. I ended up going with the one from FTP Motorsport. It was purchased from Extreme Powerhouse, but was shipped to me directly from the manufacturer in Taiwan. It did take them a few days to get it shipped out, but once it was shipped out, it arrived the next day. Before I go ahead and put it on my car, let's take a look to see what came in the box. First, we have the silicone hose that connects two parts of the charge pipe. It also has two hose clamps that came on it. Inside the same package, we also have some hardware that could be used to plug the unused holes on the charge pipe. And then we also have the O-ring and the C-clip that goes onto the throttle body end of the charge pipe. Up next, we have the top half of the charge pipe. So this is the half that connects to the throttle body. It has a matte finish that is textured to the touch. It has the mounting hole for the MAF sensor, and then also another hole for the vacuum line for automatic transmission, and then two more holes if you choose to do math injection. It also has the company decal and the serial number. Next, we have the bottom half of the charge pipe. On the side that connects to the intercooler, it has the O-ring and C-clip already installed. Other than that, it has the same texture and finish as the upper half of the pipe, but with a smaller diameter. So that's it for the unboxing part. Let's go ahead and install it on my car. So I'm gonna try to install this today. So my goal is to see if I can actually do this without getting under the car. But I still put my car up on the ramps just in case, because after I take all this apart, obviously I won't be able to drive the car. Alright, let's get to it. The first step will be to remove the air inlet and the air box. This should be pretty straightforward. First, we need to loosen this hose clamp, and then remove the vacuum hose, and then remove this plug that goes into a sensor. After that, you just pull up on the inlet pipe to disengage a joint, and then pull up on the air box to disengage the remaining joints, and it should come loose. You can simply lift up the whole thing and move it out of the way. After removing the airbox and the inlet pipe, you would expose a pipe that's connected directly to the turbo. So while you're working on the car, it's a good idea to have it covered up. With the inlet pipe and airbox removed, let's take a look at the top side of the engine bay. Although we were able to create a lot of room to work with, I still cannot see the intercooler side of the charge pipe directly, which means we'll have to get under the car. Good thing I put it on ramps already. Before getting under the car, there are a few things we need to disconnect from the charge pipe from the top side of the car. First is the plug that goes into the MAF sensor, and you can see it right here. The second thing is a vacuum hose that is slightly down below. This vacuum hose applies to automatic transmissions only. The third thing is a mounting joint that you can put out very easily. With these three items disconnected from the charge pipe, it's now time to get under the car. Now it's time to get under the car and start removing screws for the skid pad. You actually don't need to remove the four I just did at the very front of the car. Those are not for the skid pad. In total, I think I've removed 20 screws, give or take. Once all screws are removed, the skid pad will just drop to the floor and you should be able to pull it out very easily. Now let's take a look under the car. What you're seeing right now is the bottom end of the charge pipe that connects to the intercooler, and it's held in place by this C-clip. To remove this C-clip, you basically need to get a flathead screwdriver into the gap on the left and right side respectively and just pry both sides out. This is what it should look like when the C-clip is disengaged. Again, what you need to do is get the screwdriver in there, pry out one side, and then get the screwdriver into the other side and pry it out, and then the center portion should come out from the groove. With that, we can go ahead and disconnect the bottom side of the charge pipe. This opening where you access the C-clip is good for removing the clip, but not for pulling the pipe out. Instead, you can go slightly inward and pull on the flex section of the pipe. You can easily disconnect the pipe from the intercooler from here. With the bottom end of the charge pipe disconnected, we can now pull it out from the top side. Back to the top side. Before you pull the pipe out, you should also consider removing the MAF sensor. When the pipe is still attached, the screws for the MAF sensor is at a very weird angle that is difficult to access with a screwdriver. But with the pipe disconnected, it is now very easy to access those screws. So you should consider removing the sensor before pulling the pipe out. Alright, I was able to get this old pipe out from the top side of the car. The top end of the pipe was pretty brittle already, so I actually just squeezed it really hard to break off all the pieces possible. Since the top end has a larger diameter, breaking those pieces off actually made removing the pipe a lot easier. It did take a lot of effort to get the pipe out. I ended up using the space towards the back side of the throttle body. It took a lot of bending and twisting and pushing from the left hand, from down here, and then down here to finally get it out. Alright, now we can get the new pipe in there. The FTP pipe came with a bag of hardware. The two small screws are for mounting the MAF sensor. The larger opening here is for a vacuum hose that only appears on automatic transmission cars. You can attach this silver standoff to attach the vacuum hose, or if you have manual transmission, you can use the black plug to close this hole. These two holes are for math injection. If you don't have that, you can simply use the two screws that came in the other package to seal these two holes. I'm doing a fit check from underneath the car. Right now, the bottom side of the charge pipe is slided onto the intercooler, and I have not clipped in the C-clip yet. And this is where the bottom half of the charge pipe ends, and this is where it would join the silicone hose. As you can see here, we have good visibility and access from underneath the car, so it's better to have the screws of the hose clamp facing downwards so we can have easy access to them. Before installing the bottom half of the charge pipe, just put a little bit of grease around this O-ring here to help lubricate it so that it could sit properly. Since the bottom half of the charge pipe is shorter and we have good access to it from underneath the car, it's better to attach the silicone hose to it. It makes the job easier. Right now I'm looking at the top side of the pipe. Again, the screw for the hose clamp is facing downwards and is facing the driver's side. This would allow us to have easy access to it from underneath the car. I've installed the bottom half of the charge pipe. This is what it looks like when properly seated and the C-clamp engaged. Moving on to the silicone hose. If you followed my instruction, you'll be able to access the screw of the hose clamp from here. You can't really see it from the video clip, but I've circled it in red. Back to the top side, it's pretty easy to slide the top half of the charge pipe back in there. Just use the same opening that we used to pull the old pipe out. Again, it's towards the back side of the throttle body. Back to the bottom side of the car. Now the bottom end of the top half of the charge pipe should be butting against the silicone hose. You just need to slide it in there But don't tighten it just yet. We want to wait until we've attached the top side of the charge pipe. If you have oriented the hose clamp correctly, you should be able to easily access the screw from here. Make sure you don't forget to insert the O-ring for the top side of the charge pipe. There is a dedicated groove for this O-ring, so make sure you insert it at the right place. After inserting the O-ring, you can now go ahead and attach the charge pipe to the throttle body. This is what it should look like when it's properly seated and the C-clip engaged. Now we just need to get back to the underside and tighten the hose clamps. Back down here, if you followed my instruction and oriented everything correctly, you should be able to easily access the screw here and tighten the hose clamp. Alright, we are almost finished here. I put the air box back in. Make sure you remember to reconnect the MAF sensor, one vacuum line down there, a sensor or a plug for the sensor on the air box, and then another vacuum line. Tighten this hose clamp and we're basically good to go. Just need to do a quick test run before we put the skid pad back on. That doesn't sound right. Alright, so hopefully you can see from here, but there is a second half of the skid pad towards the back of the car, and the front side of that skid pad is held in place by the back end of this skid pad that we just removed. So since that is basically left hanging, when I pick up speed, I think what happens is it dips and makes contact with the ground. So that's where the noise was coming from. So it has nothing to do with the charge pipe replacement. So we're all good. I'm just gonna reattach this skid pad. And for your reference, this is the entire set of tools I've used for this charge pipe replacement. A T20 Torx for removing the mass airflow sensor, flathead screwdriver. I use this for virtually everything. And this is a, let me see, this is a 10mm socket. This is for tightening the plug on the new pipe. Some cream or grease for lubricating the seal and O-ring, and then a driver with 5/16. I'm sure there should be a equivalent metric size, but I didn't have the right size, but this 5/16 happened to be just perfect. There is also a 3mm Allen key that I used to tighten the screws for the MAF sensor on the new pipe that I forgot to include over here. So this is all the tool I've used for this replacement. Oh, and then of course jack stand or ramp so you can access the bottom side of your car. Alright, we are all done. Overall it took me about 3.5 hours, so I'd say it's not too bad. If you find this video helpful, please give me a thumb up. And also, if you have any questions regarding any of the processes, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. I'll definitely reply to you. Alright, I'm super excited to get this guy back running, and I'll see you out on the track.